And we have so many layers of corruption now, so many levels of outright lies, that the issues of what is right and what is wrong has no footing at all. Now, you know it, I know it. Look, when you're talking about common sense, that's Thomas Paine, brother. You invoke Thomas Paine, right?
Cornel West just walked onto CNN and torched the entire "both sides are the same" argument as if it owed him money. No yelling, no cheap shots, just straight moral clarity that made the panel freeze mid-spin.
Quote, release the Epstein files. No, it's not just House Democrats saying that. Now it's apparently Donald Trump, too. In a stunning reversal, President Trump is telling Republicans to vote to release the files. Why? Well, because, quote, we have nothing to hide, he says. He still calls it a Democrat hoax and says that the Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to because he doesn't care. He just wants to focus on the economy.
So I'm for I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time.
This is one of those moments where the spin collapses under its own weight. You've got a sudden release everything posture paired with it's all a hoax and don't talk about it too much, which is political gymnastics at Olympic level. Transparency is being sold as confidence, blame is being outsourced, and the tone is basically, look over there, the economy's great. What makes it interesting isn't the pivot, it's the timing. When pressure starts coming from inside the party, the narrative magically changes and accountability turns into performance.
Because Trump didn't want the Epstein files released, and he's sort of half-heartedly saying, well, just release them all, while also saying, we'll only investigate the Democrats in all of this.
I am tired of this conversation being about Republicans and Democrats because to me it's just so much about right and wrong and the ways that we as a country, as a society, our institutions have failed these victims. I think it's got to be very hurtful for those victims to hear the President of the United States refer to their plight as a hoax. I urge people watching to go and look for this PSA that some of those victims put out today.
We do have it, and we can play. Let me just play a little bit.
They're holding pictures of themselves.
Let's play it.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17. 14 years old. This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
So that's very much not a hoax. It's very real. It has ruined the lives and scarred those women for the rest of their lives. You know, I think collectively we've got to stop fighting about this being Democrat or Republican. This was a bunch of rich men who felt entitled to do whatever the hell they wanted and thought they could get away with it. And they almost did.
The moment completely derails the partisan ping pong everyone keeps hiding behind. The whole release everything, but only look at them routine falls apart the second the focus shifts to the actual victims. Once their faces and ages appear on the screen, the word hoax stops being a talking point and starts sounding grotesque. That's the reset point. This isn't left versus right. It's power versus accountability. Wealthy, connected men operated in plain sight, institutions looked the other way, and politics spent years arguing over teams instead of addressing the damage. When that video plays, the noise drops because you can't spin-lived trauma. Transparency stops being a buzzword and becomes the bare minimum owed to people whose lives were permanently altered.
Is Democrats and others who have gone on television and either implied or worse that he had something to do with it. There's not a shred of evidence that he had anything to do with it, but that's what they want people to believe. That's the narrative that they are trying to get out there. That's the hoax. He's never said what happened to them is a hoax. In fact, there seems to be some shards of evidence in here that Trump may have been one of the people that turned in Jeffrey Epstein, which is why Epstein, according to some of the documents, apparently hated Donald Trump. And so the hoax is not that it happened. The hoax is what people are trying to imply or worse
You're
about
citing
it.
the.
This is the classic pivot. Redefine the word hoax so it's no longer about the abuse, the victims, or the lack of justice. It's about hurt feelings and bad narratives. The crime is acknowledged just enough to dodge denial, but accountability is shoved off screen. And that's the trick. If the focus stays on who said what on TV instead of who enabled what behind closed doors, nothing ever actually gets answered. Transparency stops being a threat only when there's something worth hiding.
If Trump has nothing to hide, and he's totally entitled to say that, to believe that, he should be clamoring for these documents, for the full context to be released, but he's not doing that.
So you believe after 10 years of this, of him being on the public stage, that if there was something to know, we wouldn't know it by now? Look, the issue is...
I mean, you could make that argument about every single person who's implicated in these documents.
Okay.
That is not a legitimate argument.
And you just raised the key issue.
Every single person who may or may not be implicated, the argument is, if there was something to know, we would have known it. If there was something to know, yeah, I mean, it's in the documents, and we don't know it about not just Trump, anybody.
So you just
no
raised
one.
the key.
This is the point where the defense really starts to crack. Claiming that if there was something to know, we'd already know it, is convenient, but it completely ignores the fact that transparency hasn't been allowed. You can't dismiss full context just to protect a narrative. The calm, fact-based pushback makes the contradiction impossible to ignore. Resisting full disclosure while insisting on innocence isn't confidence, it's pure avoidance. It's a textbook example of dodging accountability while pretending nothing's at stake.
You use the word implicated. If someone's name appears in these documents, it doesn't necessarily mean they did anything wrong, but I'm sure that is going to lead people to say, oh, they've been implicated, and so we'll see what comes out. I have no expectations.
Scott, can I tell you, they may not have done something criminal. Just the fact that they are having email exchanges does not mean that they did something criminal.
Like Larry Summers.
Okay, but
or Stacey Plaskett.
Yes.
The fact that they're having exchanges with Epstein.
That may not be criminal. I do think it is wrong.
Here's where the reality check hits. Trying to downplay names appearing in the emails as not criminal misses the bigger picture. These are influential people knowingly associating with a convicted sex offender well after his sentence. It's not about immediate criminality. It's about accountability, judgment, and moral responsibility. And when you try to dodge that, as Jennings does, the question of whether someone should resign becomes unavoidable. The heat is real, and dodging just makes it worse.
No, but I mean, the sad thing is, Sister Anna's point about the weight and gravity toss of what is right and what is wrong so easily gets erased and eliminated because integrity, honesty, and decency gets pushed aside and it becomes just a partisan matter of Democrats versus Republicans. We know that gangsterism is promiscuous. It will lie with Democrats, Republicans, independents, leftist, center, right, Christians, Jews, Catholics, Muslims. It's a human thing. And we have so many layers of corruption now, so many levels of outright lies, that the issues of what is right and what is wrong has no footing at all. Now, you know it, I know it. Look, when you're talking about common sense, that's Thomas Paine, brother. You invoke Thomas Paine, right?
I'll tell you,
has a morality
have a quick
in
word
his
because
text, and he's a foe of tyrants, a foe of autocrats, and a foe.
Here's the perfect setup. The whole conversation so far is a messy tangle of partisanship, moral dodging, and finger-pointing. People try to turn right and wrong into a Democrat versus Republican debate, conveniently ignoring integrity, honesty, and decency. Corruption is everywhere, and the moral compass gets buried under layers of lies. And just when the discussion threatens to spiral into chaos, Cornel West steps in, ready to cut through all the noise with a searing, no-nonsense reality check.
The current Secretary of Commerce, who was his next-door neighbor, Jeffrey Epstein, and went to his house once and said, I didn't have to go there again. Go listen to the podcast, people, that he did on this. He went there once. He saw a massage table surrounded by candles in the living room, and he got so creeped out he never set foot there again.
We got to leave it.
Epstein once gave him a tour of his home.
I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me. Ooh. And he says, and the right kind of massage.
Lutnick says he broke ties with Epstein after that encounter. He says he believes Epstein got a favorable deal back in 2008 when Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 state prostitution charges, granting him and any potential co-conspirators immunity from federal prosecution.
At the end of the day, this isn't about party lines. It's about a system that let the powerful get away with abuse for far too long. Epstein's case isn't shocking because of some conspiracy, but because it exposes how easily institutions ignored the warning signs. Accountability, finally catching up, is long overdue.